If you're a wellness expert, a coach, a therapist, a nutritionist, a practitioner, and maybe you've been on the hunt for how to overcome your public speaking anxiety, and you've probably heard a few things along the way, like just take some nice deep breaths or even imagine the audience naked. I'm betting none of that old advice has actually worked for you. So I made this video specifically for you. I'm Nicole, a former PR executive turned visibility coach and hypnotherapist, and I help wellness experts who struggle with self promotion become sought after experts by confidently showing up on camera, on podcasts, on stages, and networking opportunities. Now, by the end of this video, you're going to understand why everything you've been told has probably been failing you and what to actually do instead. Now, here's the thing about public speaking advice. Most of it was designed for people whose fear is actually just surface level, and they experience nervousness due to lack of familiarity with public speaking. But once that person practices, the nervousness just kind of goes away, and the public speaking almost becomes very second nature. It feels like learning to ride a bike. And yes, sometimes when we learn how to ride a bike, it's very difficult, but once we get the hang of it, it's very easy. Now, I'm not saying that public speaking will not be easy for you at some point, but it's to understand that your mechanics might be a little bit different than simply getting on and pedaling the wheels, if you will. If you're an established professional, a coach, a therapist, a nutritionist, a practitioner, someone with years of experience getting really great results for your clients, you may feel like being more visible actually puts you in a high stakes situation that leaves you open to having your viewpoint or your authority challenged. And here's what makes it more complicated for someone like you. You actually know the exact expert advice you give a client if you were in a one-to-one session with them, but you feel an immense amount of insecurity and pressure the moment a camera turns on you or the moment you have to speak on a podcast or a panel discussion. And that gap that you feel is actually the problem underneath your public speaking anxiety. And so the reason that it's specifically harder for you when you are a wellness professional is that your work is inherently personal. Sure, you might be recommending specific products to your clients, but ultimately you're really selling your deep knowledge and truly yourself. So when you step in front of a camera or onto a stage, it activates your fight or flight response. And you're not worried about just saying, too many times during your presentation. Your brain is actually thinking things like, what if there's new research out that actually conflicts with what I've been telling my clients? And what if I lose my credibility or my relevance? Or what if I actually start a social media account and I'm creating videos to promote my practice and my colleagues think that I'm a sellout or I lose their respect? And so for you, it's not about just these sensations of nervousness that you feel in your body, feeling uncomfortable. You're actually experiencing a threat to your life's work. So, here are the 5 things I see wellness experts do because the advice sounds logical, but it's actually making things harder for you. And here's what to do instead. Number one, you probably heard just suck it up and face the fear. Now, I don't recommend just sucking it up and facing the fear without real support. But I'm guessing that over the years, you probably circled around a lot of this advice. Feel the fear and do it anyway, or push through it, or exposure is the cure. And I want you to sit with something for a second. Every day, you help your clients move through fear. So you know how to create safety. You know how to build the conditions for someone to take a risk and not be destroyed by it, right? But I want to ask you, who is doing that for you? Because here's what just suck it up misses for wellness professionals specifically. You're not avoiding visibility because you don't have the capacity to be with those hard moments. You're avoiding it because you care deeply about your reputation, your ethics, about being seen as a respectable practitioner. And when you force yourself to white knuckle it through something your nervous system genuinely believes is dangerous to your career, you don't build confidence. Now, you might build a story that says, I pushed through it, I survived, and it was awful, it was horrible. And that narrative actually doesn't make the next time easier, it makes it harder. So, what I actually recommend instead is to build the safety first and get support, whether that is a fellow colleague to give you honest feedback on your speech and help you go through the points, or to hire someone like me who can not only provide that emotional support, but also the tangible media training that you need. Number two, you might have heard something like just do a 30-day video challenge and get in your reps, right? And I don't recommend a 30-day video challenge, at least not without guidance or proper support. Now, I truly feel that the 30-day video challenge or the 21-day video challenge is like the kale of content advice, right? Everybody prescribes it. Most people don't like it. And if you quit, then you become the problem. And here's what I noticed specifically with wellness professionals it actually conflicts with everything that you value. Your work is deep, you go into depth, and you build long term relationships. And you know that transformation often takes longer than 30 days. So when someone hands you a content sprint and says, this is how you build your media presence, part of you already knows that that's really not true. And that knowing inside makes that conflict even harder. Now, what I often see here is that someone with real visibility wounds and or made fun of when they presented in front of the class, or maybe they were a little overweight and felt really insecure about being seen, when they start to put themselves in that situation where they're going live every day or putting out a video every day, at first it feels fun, right? There's a lot of hope there. And then by day 5 of the challenge, they start noticing that got really low views and your brain starts telling you, oh my gosh, you're ruining your reputation. So then by day 7 of this challenge, you are completely done with it because your inner critic is just screaming at you. And when you stop, what your brain will tell you is then this doesn't work for you. You can't do this. And you just give yourself more evidence that it's not going to work. So, what I recommend instead is to start with a private 5-day video challenge. Maybe every day before you leave your office, you will sit down and think about one question a client asked you during the day and write it down. And then take out your camera or your phone and record yourself asking the questions and then answering it. And that way you can practice being in the Q&A in a way that feels a little bit more safe for you. At the end of the 5 days, go back and watch all your content and see if there's anything you just want to put out into the world, or maybe something that you would like to re-record and finesse a bit and then send it out. And I think that's the best way to do it with some gradual improvement that feels actually safe. Now, one of the things that often gets shared is to just memorize your whole speech word for word, because if you memorize it all, you cannot go wrong. Right now, I don't recommend that for you at all. And I want to say this one because I think this makes a lot of sense for you logically as a wellness expert. It's because you've probably done a lot of training, clinical practices where you had to memorize specific tools or protocols, or you've had to learn a lot of evidence-based frameworks. So you were taught you needed to learn your material cold and you needed to have the answer ready. But what memorization doesn't do when you're on stage or you're on podcast or on your camera is it locks your attention to that script. And it means that you aren't really engaging with the audience. You're in your head. So you're not adjusting to what you're experiencing in the room. And the second something shifts, maybe the PowerPoint skips 2 slides, or maybe somebody asks an unexpected questions, or maybe your mic doesn't work in the middle. You're searching for that next line, trying to find it, and your brain is kind of freezing. My goal for every client is authentic presence and not to overpolish or to deliver a flat performance. Now, what I recommend instead is know your key points, know the beginning, know the 3 middle points or the 4 middle points, and then knowing your end and giving yourself the grace to be able to move through those easily, even if they were out of order. Now, number 4 is trying to sound super smart. Now, one thing that you might think is good advice for yourself is that you need to try to sound super smart. And that's the way that you're going to get through your presentation. Now, I don't recommend this for you at all because using overly impressive vocabulary that you aren't normally using day to day, or using a lot of jargon in your presentation or your podcast interview, is going to make you look like you're trying too hard, right? It puts you in that proving energy. And when you feel that and the person across from you feels that or your audience feels that, it just puts 5 times more pressure on you to perform. You're probably noticing people are shifting and they're uncomfortable because they're not really connecting with what you're saying. And you think that's about you, but it's really that you aren't meeting your audience where they're at and giving them stories or real client experiences. So, what I recommend instead is to actually focus on making things simple to understand. People have different ways of learning. Some people are highly visual. So, can you give them an example, a visual on a screen, something that you can bring out as a visual tool? And some people are much more auditory, so that they need to hear the language, they need to hear the shift in your tone as you're talking through your presentation. Now, number 5, just imagine the audience naked. Now, this one just kind of makes me laugh because, for the love of God, please do not try to imagine your audience naked. It's just not an effective use of your imagination to try to imagine them without any clothes on before your speech or your podcast or your appearance, right? Now, a better use of your imagination before your speech, before your podcast guest interview, before your panel discussion is to imagine yourself moving through the experience with grace, calm, and ease. So you can just close your eyes and move yourself through a visualization. And that helps to create the new neural pathways and to reinforce that experience for you. And that will actually help you to feel safer with public speaking. Now, if you know you're exceptional at what you do, but you still struggle to promote yourself, make sure you subscribe to this channel. And you could also head to my Substack, Ready to Be Seen, where I go deeper into helping wellness experts and conscious entrepreneurs overcome their fear of being seen so they can exude confidence online, on cameras, and in rooms that shape influence and income. Now, the link is below in my description, so come find me there. I'm Nicole, and this is Ready to Be Seen, and I will see you in the next video.